Welcome back to McMeen in the Middle, Denver's Migrant Crisis.
I would now like to introduce our esteemed panel. Over here we have Genesis Salum Rosas. She is the mom of Michael Rosas, who is a first grader, rising second grader at McMeen. And then we have Miss Lily Zaragoza, a kindergarten teacher from the film, the star. Also, Carrie Olson, who is president of the Board of Education, also represents District 3, and we sit here in District 3. And your reporter for Denver with CBS News Colorado, Jasmine Arenas, who has spent a lot of time at the school this year, and we're grateful, Jasmine, for your empathy and for your compassion in covering immigration issues, and we look forward to hearing from you. But I'd like to start with Ms. Zaragoza. Yesterday, you were bidding farewell to your students for the year. What are your reflections on the year?
I mean, we had lots of challenges, but there's also so many things to be happy about and celebrate. We provided a safe environment for a lot of these kids, and we made great relationships with them, and they were happy to be at school. Yeah. I think that was my biggest goal, for them to just find happiness with us.
That's great. Yeah, we saw how the friendships blossomed. I mean, do you find that over time those holds, or do kids go back into the established students and the newcomers, or do they really just
They started mixing more throughout the year and helping each other out and scolding one another. Like, they were super comfortable by the last week of school.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So you're going to become an interventionist,
yes,
which is a promotion here at the school. Tell me about, we hear so much about the kids coming with these learning gaps. It's got to be incredibly challenging to teach 33 children, in your case, or 35 children, so many kids, especially when they are behind. In the role of an interventionist, what are the things that can be done to help kids catch up? We know they're capable of remarkable things, but how do you actually do that?
We'll be able to pull them in a small group setting and focus on specific skills for each group. I've been talking to our other dual language interventionists and already bouncing off ideas, trying to come up with a plan, and just we're expecting the same kids to come back, but we don't know yet. But we're still expecting 35 kids in our dual language classrooms. So just see what that looks like in August and start pulling kids as soon as we can.
Right.
In different grades too, not just the lower grades, but we saw needs up in upper elementary as well.
Yeah, that's great that you were here and you're able to now, based on what you saw, able to apply that this next year.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Genesis, próxima quiere a la mamá de Michael, estudiante de primer grado. Su familia ha pasado por muchos cambios este año. Hace un año ustedes estaban exiliados de Venezuela en Colombia. ¿Qué significó para Michael la estabilidad de la experiencia escolar aquí en McMeen? Y si puede pausar un momento para que la traductora, la intérprete puede interpretar.
So Genesis, I know that your family has done a lot of changes. I know that your family has gone through a lot of changes this year. So we would like to know your son, Michael. Tell me about how he has adjusted to school, and how has he react to the education in Denver?
Bueno, el primer año acá en Michael, los primeros 4 meses o 5 meses, diría yo, fueron los más difíciles para él, fueron los más duros. No quería venir a clases, todos los días lloraba que no le gustaba la escuela, que no le gustaba la comida, que no le gustaba el cambio de horario, el clima.
So, at the beginning, the first 4 to 5 months, they were very tough on Michael. He didn't want to come to school. He didn't like the food. He didn't like the weather. So it was very hard for him.
Se deprimió, estuvo presentando depresión, no estaba comiendo bien, se la pasaba solitario, no quería salir, no quería compartir con más personas, ni incluso con sus hermanos.
So he was getting depressed, he didn't want to eat, he wanted to be by himself, he didn't want to share with his siblings about himself.
Su rendimiento académico era bajo, no quería, como que adaptarse al nuevo cambio. También tuvo la oportunidad, después de varios años, encontrarse con su abuelo, que su abuelo se encuentra en Orlando, Florida, Y eso como que fue el empujón que a él le hacía falta, la motivación que lo ayudó a querer adaptarse a este país.
So his academic performance was low, and he was able to get in contact with his grandfather, who is in Florida right now. So he went to, they got together, and I feel that that's the push that he needed. So that was very, very good for him.
También decidimos y le preguntamos a la profesora que si él podía tener acompañamiento psicológico, y la profesora Miss Montesinos nos dijo que sí. Comenzó su acompañamiento psicológico y fue donde más tuvo apoyo porque estuvo presentando muchos traumas debido al viaje.
So we asked the teacher if he could receive some mental health services. So the teacher said yes, and he started receiving those mental health services because he was starting to show a lot of the trauma about the trip that we had.
También se hizo muy amigo de Julián. Fue como que el diagnóstico que decía la psicóloga, que fue un gran acompañamiento de que Julián estuviera a su lado porque lo ayudó a crecer como un niño, a sentirse acompañado, a sentirse querido tanto por Kathleen como Claudio. Claudio batalló muchos días con él en la mañana a la recogida para traerlo a clase porque lloraba o se enojaba porque no quería venir. Pero ya después su mejoría se fue notando.
Julián es un chico de aquí? Mm-hmm. Sí? Yeah. So, and then he met Julián, a kid from here, and that helped a lot. I feel I was talking with the psychologist, and she told me, you know what, that is helping him a lot. And then Claudio, my other son, ¿tú eres Claudio?
Julián and Michael are in the audience if they could wave.
So my other son, my second son, also starting to show, signs of distress.
Y el último día de clases de Michael, que fue el martes, llegó y me dice, mamá, yo quiero hacerle un regalo a mi profesora Miss Montesinos. Y ese día también la psicosocial, la psicóloga, le había entregado una carta y él me dijo, este verano se me va a hacer largo porque voy a extrañar a mi profesora y a mi psicóloga.
So the last day of school, he came home and he told me that he wanted to give a present to Miss Montesinos, his teachers, and he told me that that this summer was going to be a long summer because he was going to miss his teacher and he was going to miss his psychologist.
Michael es un niño de 7 años, pero tiene una madurez y un temperamento un poco bipolar. Pero hay que saberlo sobrellevar y hoy digo actualmente que se adaptó, gracias al apoyo de muchas personas que estuvieron involucradas en su vida, al nuevo cambio que estamos enfrentando. Ahora el otro reto sería su hermano.
So Michael is a 7-year-old kid, and he is a kid that is very bright, very kind of mature for his age, but is also very, and I think Mom is using the word bipolar, like, his mood changed very easily. And I feel that he's getting adapted to the new country. So now, of course, I need to go and worry about the next one that is coming up, my second son. So I want him to go through the same process of starting to feel comfortable in this new environment for them.
Y bueno, agradecido completamente con McMeen por el gran apoyo que nos ha brindado, y hoy diría yo que actualmente no estamos súper bien, pero sí estamos estables económicamente y estamos, como que diría, un poco más legal en el país.
Yes, I'm very grateful to the school. I'm very grateful to McMeen because I don't think that I'm in the point or we are in the point where we want to be, but this has helped us a lot to be at least in a place where we feel more legal. So, thank you.
Carrie Olson, thank you so much for being here tonight. Yes, DPS could not have foreseen this surge in enrollment that occurred this year. By last count, it was approaching 4,000 students in the month of May. But pardon me?
Over 4,700.
Oh my goodness. And an overriding concern of teachers and families has to be class size. We know that it's not been uniform across the district. We know that certain schools like McMeen have been more heavily impacted. So is the district able to do anything to try to prevent this 35 student expectation that teachers will have to once again work with that many children?
Before I answer that question, I know you and I talked about this a little bit before. I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege and just let you know that I was Lily's teacher when she was in middle school. So I taught over at Kepner, and Lily and her sister were students in my Kepner classroom. So you can imagine the pride I feel to see her working so amazing and giving back to her community in a way that is so inspiring. And I will birdwalk just a little bit because I'd like to just tell another story. When I first started hearing about how we were getting so many immigrants in the schools that I represent, I came to the principals and I said, I would like to not just visit your school, but I'd like to volunteer. And I think Miss Hinman has a bit of sense of humor, and she's like, I have the perfect classroom where you should go and volunteer. So in role reversals, I walked into Lily's room, and she's like, I can't tell you what to do. You're my teacher. I said, yes, you can. Put me to work. So I worked with some of her students in testing them and getting them caught up. And I was able to come here for a parent night one night, and I saw the love and the care that the McMeen community gave from the very beginning to the families. And I think the statement that they said is they're enriching the fabric and quilt of our community here by receiving so many students from who are new to the country. And I just really appreciate all the staff here. I know it's been hard, but the love and the care, I saw that from the very beginning, before I think we even on the board realized how many students we were getting. I saw everybody here just reacting. So I just had to tell that story. I know I want to embarrass you a bit, but yeah.
And I actually did a story on Carrie when she was a teacher at McMeen back in 2007. I'm sorry, at Kepner. At Kepner back in 2007, and just the extraordinary work. I mean, look at the lives changed, and we know the impact of education because here you are doing it for the next generation.
It's an honor. It's an honor to serve. So to the question on class sizes, we know that a lot of our schools that have received a lot of immigrants or new to country students have had large class sizes. And of course, nobody could have predicted all of this. And we've tried to respond as quickly and nimbly as we can. And so for next year, we're going to stay in closer touch with principals to watch that enrollment. I know that for this area, many of the families who have come here are planning on staying because I visited the schools that I represent on this side, and the housing seems to be stable, and families are more likely to stay here. So we'll be working with principals to say, as students are enrolling, if they start to see class sizes over 30, especially in the younger grades to 35, we'll work with principals to say, what else do you need? Do you need more teachers? Do you need more paraprofessionals? What do you need to be able to meet that? But we probably will see classes that are over 35 until we can get it stabilized. I even remember before we had this, when I was a classroom teacher, some years I would have classes of 40 before we could even things out during the month of September.
Yeah. What about summer school? You know, we talked about learning gaps, and I know that a lot of the educators here care so much about the kids, and they were disappointed that there aren't more families availing themselves of summer school. I think transportation's been a concern. Shoemaker, which would be the school assigned here, is a good 5.5 miles away. That's 45 minutes on a bus. So when kids are so behind academically, what can the district do? I mean, I know we have Ms. Zaragoza as an interventionist next year, but is there more that can be done to help kids address those gaps?
So I think there's two answers to that. First of all, this was a great question that I got ahead of time because it allowed us to do a little research and figure out where are some of the students going from here if they weren't being picked up by summer school. And we did learn that many of them have gone to C3 for summer school because that was actually their enrollment zone for summer school. So maybe it appears that they didn't get picked up because they're not going to Shoemaker, but they actually have ended up over at C3 for summer school. And there's some other schools around here that have air conditioning. As I see people starting to fan themselves, you now know why McMeen wasn't picked yet for summer school with no air conditioning, although it's coming. But so the schools that Denver Public Schools picks for summer school have air conditioning. And so that's one answer. So there are, I'm sure some have fallen through the cracks, and we would be willing to work with families to make sure that if you know there's a family that wants summer school that hasn't gotten it yet, we're happy to help. And then I'm wondering next year how we can better support interventionists and people doing the work in the classrooms as they see gaps with students and how they can help them get caught up. I know another school that I represent on the board is Ashley, and I've spent a lot of time there as well. And I see the small groups that Lily was talking about that students are able to pull. Some of my students at the University of Denver who are pre-service teachers share some of the tips and tricks that they've learned from the mentor teachers who are here in the audience and have great ideas for how to get students caught up. So I don't think it's us telling you what to do. I think it's more you, this faculty, telling us how can we best support you, because you know your students and your situation better than we do.
Yeah, thank you. Jasmine is your reporter here in Denver. And over the past year, you've spent many hours here at the school, but you also cover a lot of immigration issues. So I'd like to ask, what about the experience here at McMeen stands out to you the most? And secondly, also, can you address, as journalists, we like to be impartial. It's very important that we maintain balance and not get too involved in stories, because we have to be impartial reporters of the truth. That's been hard for you, I think, in this year, because you have seen so much need.
Definitely. So there's two questions there, Anna, and I appreciate those questions. But starting off with the immigration issues, I mean, immigration is a very complicated subject. Even like the smartest person has probably the hardest time understanding policy, because it's ever changing. And so when we're talking about immigration, it's important to be able to report the truth of what's going on, but also to be human and to actually understand where families are coming from, why they made the trip over here, ask questions that actually take us to the reality of their lives. And for instance, I've followed Genesis' family for months now. And at first, I was kind of just trying to figure them out and trying to figure out, how I would even cover a family that just came from Venezuela, because honestly, my first time really following a family who migrated to the US. And so for me, there's just been a lot of different emotions. When I first met them, I was happy to meet them. You do the basic questions. Then I started going over their home just for stories, of course. And then I started to just learn about their journey. And it's very sad when you think about it. I'm a very emotional and sentimental person, so the fact that I'm a reporter is a little and Genesis knows. She's crying. It's just a very different life. You have different perspective, right? If you've never lived in another country, or if you've never had to leave the country that you live in, that you love, you wouldn't really understand the journey. And so, fortunately for me, my parents are from Mexico, and they came to the U.S. when they were young, but I was born in the U.S., and so though I learned about my culture, and though I learned how, the American system and everything as well, I never had to leave my country because of corruption. I never had to leave my country because I couldn't afford a meal the next day. These are people who love their country. Trust me, if they had the chance, and I've asked them several times to go back, would they? Some say yes, some say no, it's really bad over there. But most of the time, the answer is yes, I would love to be back in my country, in Venezuela, in Colombia. But it's just not sustainable. And there's days that even some families have shared with me that living out there, their children wouldn't eat, they wouldn't eat, and it's not a life that you would want for your kids or for yourself even. So seeing their journey here and seeing how tough their journey has been, it's just been eye-opening. I'm like, you're here, you're still struggling here to even get adjusted to the culture. Why are you here? Is it better than where you're from? The situation is, and that's why we're here. And so, to answer your question, Anna, when covering these topics, I always want to sympathize with the family, and I also want to tell the truth because I take pride in that. But for other people to understand, I always want to be able to give a voice to those who feel voiceless and unheard.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Tengo otra pregunta para Genesis. ¿Fue desalentador, pero no sorprendente, para usted saber que la intersección donde vive, que es 800 South Oneida, aquí cerca de la escuela, es una de las áreas de Denver más propensas a la violencia con armas de fuego? En el documental aprendemos el alivio de finalmente poder trabajar, pero después de todo lo que ha pasado su familia, le gustaría quedarse en McMeen, pero buscar un lugar más seguro para vivir y para crear sus hijos. ¿Puedes contarnos un poco sobre eso?
Sí. El bloque 8.
Primero la interpretación.
The
Okay.
question is, we know that you live.
Oh, the mic.
Other mic.
So the question is, we know that you live, the address is 800 Oneida, so I know that it's one of the corners that has one of the highest
Incidents of gun violence.
incidents of gun
Yeah,
violence.
one of 5 areas identified by Denver police.
So the question is, would you like for your kids to keep attending here, but would you
Find
like...
a safer place to live.
Okay. Sí, el bloque 800, que es ahí en South Oneida, es uno de los más peligrosos. Ya hace 2 meses hubo una pelea entre varias personas, mexicanos, venezolanos y americanos, donde resultó herido de bala 2 personas.
So 2 months ago, there was a big fight there. It was between people from Mexico, people from Venezuela, and also people from the United States. They were exchange of weapons, and there was a shooting. And
Y en medio de la balacera, porque eran disparos, habían 5 menores de edad. Cuando
between this shooting, there were 5 minors.
¿Cómo diría yo? La persecución o la pelea fue tan grande que era en la Torre C y yo vivo en la Torre G y la pelea llegó hasta la Torre G.
So this fight was so big that this fight was at the beginning was in the Tower C, and I'm all the way in Tower E. So the fight went all over to my building.
Se metieron muchas personas porque había muchos gritos pidiendo auxilio, pidiendo socorro. Es una de las cosas que nosotros hemos peleado mucho en ese lugar, es que la policía llega cuando ya todo ha pasado.
So there was a lot of people screaming, there was a lot of people asking for help, and that's the thing, that the police arrive when everything is over. So...
Y lo que dicen los managers del condominio es que tomemos fotos, videos, que nosotros nos involucremos. O sea, que hagamos el trabajo que ellos tienen que hacer, sin saber si tu vecino tiene un armamento.
So what the managers of these kind of buildings are advising us for us to get involved, for us to take the videos, or for us to get involved in something that we feel is their job to maintain that place safe.
También se vio no hace también un mes, hubo un secuestro ya de un menor de edad dentro del lugar. También roban vehículos, se roban la correspondencia. O sea, el lugar no está habitable. En realidad no lo recomendaría para vivir porque Yasmín se dio cuenta cuando estuvimos explorando el área. Los apartamentos se filtran, los pasillos son súper sucios. En el área de la lavandería duermen indigentes.
So a month ago there was a kidnapping, and really these kind of places to live is something that I would not recommend. There is people homeless sleeping in the laundry area. There is water filtration. There is things that do not work. So the place itself is not only not safe, but it's not habitable, to live in there.
En medio también de una de las peleas que han ocurrido, porque mayor con frecuencia ocurren peleas, le partieron el vidrio del carro a mi esposo. Yasmín creo que tuvo la posibilidad de grabar eso, el vidrio, sí. Él creo que te lo enseñó cómo estaba partido. Ellos dicen es que no se hacen responsables, y lo último que hizo que tomáramos el paso de llegar a una corte fue que hace 15 días atrás, aún pagando el estacionamiento, se llevaron el vehículo. Sí.
So there's a lot of robberies. There's a lot of breaking into cars. So they broke into my husband's cars, and the reason that we have to go to court now is because these people told us, the people managing the buildings, that it's really not their responsibility what happened to those cars, and they stole my husband's cars. ¿Cuándo se lo robaron? ¿Hace una semana?
Más o menos un mes.
Hace un mes. A month ago, they stole my husband's car. So there's a lot of robbery in the area.
Entonces, por eso fue que, decidimos, como te mandé la dirección, de aplicar en otro lugar, un lugar como que más seguro para los niños, donde no se vean todo ese tipo de cosas, de violencia, de drogas, porque se ve también ahí, y uno evitar como que esa área o ese espacio para los niños.
Yeah, we're trying to find another place that is safer for us, because in that place there is not only robberies, there is not only that the place is not a place that you can live, but also there is drug dealing. So it is not a safe place for us. So we are trying to see if we can get another place that is a little bit more safe for our family.
Thank you, Genesis. I raised it because there are many of the families who live there, and so it's been a concern of educators at the school just to try to engage Denver police, see what families can do to make sure their kids are safe over the summer. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question?
Hi, I'm Susie Malman, and my kids all went to DPS. I want to know, what's the process? So when somebody comes from another country, do they go down to the Board of Education? How do they get placed in different schools? I'm assuming this is not the only one. So what's the process when somebody new comes into the system?
I might need Ms. Hinman's help to answer this. I believe Lauren Barch is right here too.
I believe it's driven
depends
by
where
housing.
they live, yes.
Yeah.
So if they live in our zone, they come to McMeen. And we also have the bilingual program, so I think there's paperwork that they fill up, and if it says something about needing Spanish services, and they have to be placed in the nearest bilingual school. I don't know if I got that right or not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good job. You got it.
Thank you.
I'm Germán Cisneros. I work for DPS for School of Choice. And when a family arrives to the district, they have to go to the closest School of Choice office they have in their area. And then they assign them a school, the one that is closer to them, or the parents, and then they can get a bus service to that school. And when the parents choose out of that school, they are responsible for the transportation and everything that the kid needs. But they try to do that also so not many schools get overcrowded because people are choosing in.
And how do they know before that? So you live here, somebody helps you find a place.
Looks like she's going to answer.
I can help address this. Families are finding their way to McMeen for a couple of reasons. One is we have a fair amount of low-rent apartments, and she's been addressing the challenges. These are apartment buildings that don't always require any documentation. So our families are finding their way to those apartments. The word of mouth is very strong. The other reason they're coming into our neighborhood is because we have a dual language program. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking staff. So the word of mouth is strong. They find housing. They hear there's a school here that's welcoming and speaks Spanish. What a lot of people do not understand is that in the United States of America, if you live in the district of your school, a neighborhood school, you have a right to go to that school. So when families come in and we have a class of 30, let's say, and 35 is the legal max, we can't say, no, you need to go down the street. Our classrooms are too full. So we can't just turn them away. In the United States of America, you have a right to go to your neighborhood school. So our classrooms were getting bigger and bigger and bigger simply because this was a popular place to be. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. One more question. I think we're running out of time. Yeah, the panelists will all be available afterwards to speak. I once again would like to thank Ms. Hinman and Jean Boylan, Principal Resident Lauren Barsh, and all the staff for all of their support this year. I'd also like to give a heartfelt thanks again to my colleague Jason Boz, the extraordinary photojournalist, without whom we couldn't have put this together. He's brilliant and has such an artistic eye. Thank you, Jasmine, for your support. Thanks to Christine Strain for supporting us this school year, the vision behind this in this very demanding business to allow us the luxury of time to do this project. And Tim Wieland, of course, for his enthusiastic embrace of this initiative, really to see the human impact of the event that was happening in our city. In the school foyer, there are flyers that contain information about how you can continue to support McMeen. The school is going to need a lot of support this summer, and students during the summer, and then next school year, we will be continuing to collect supplies, including new school supplies, grocery gift cards to help families. We'll be collecting them at CBS Colorado throughout the summer. And we'd also like to encourage people to donate to the DPS New Arrivals Fund. The school was the beneficiary of a large grant from the DPS New Arrivals Fund, so that really does make a difference for these families. Please take a flyer and share them with other people. And thank you so much for attending tonight. Have a happy and safe summer.